What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I have a wonderful show for you today. I have a guest on the show who's an intercontinental champion of film and TV. The legend himself, Michael Winnick. We're here to discuss his new film, Disquiet. Welcome to the show.
Very happy to be here. Thanks, Bryan. That's one heck of an introduction. Don't know how to compete with that.
Oh, we're going to practice our pro wrestling promos a little bit later. But first, we're going to start out at the very beginning. Where did it all begin for you in film? Was it something you watched on your parents' TV at home? Was it a certain movie? What was the spark that ignited you into cinema?
Actually, when I was like 3, I was making little stick figure books, and before I could write words, and I'd go around the neighborhood and sell them for a few pennies, and I would make little stories of pictures, and eventually I learned to write words and would put words on them, and whether they were being nice to the little kid who was wandering around trying to sell his little picture books, or they liked him, I don't know, but I had a shoebox full of coins. I didn't even know how to count coins, but it felt like this was something cool. and then after that, I became the kid running around with a camera trying to convince my friends to make movies with me. And they were very unreliable, so I moved to claymation because they actually showed up.
I relate to that. Do you remember what was your first home video camera you used to shoot those little home movies on with your friends?
This gets even funnier. I think I grabbed my parents' Super 8. So, and then was trying to figure out, what's developing about and what does that mean? We can't look at it like right now. What's happening here?
Well, so you had to go find a place to develop film. You didn't have one of those VHS camcorders, right?
Right. Well, but then that eventually, eventually moved into that after the first attempt. That this developing thing's a little rough. I think, what was it? You know what? Actually, I think it was, believe it or not, I think it was High 8 would have been.
Okay, the High 8. I remember that.
You remember the High 8?
I remember the High 8.
Yeah, it was after the big giant thing.
Yep.
And they had it was very tiny, and it was a little High 8. The tape was as big as the camera.
Right. I remember those, and you had to kind of get a DV bridge or something like that.
Yeah,
to kind of convert
that was
it.
always complicated. I'm sure in my parents' closet I have a bunch of little High 8s that I have no idea how to make play, but.
And with movies in your resume like Shadow Puppets and Malicious, all the way to Disquiet, which could be in the horror genre, did you start out with that first homemade movie with friends in the horror genre?
You know what? I was the one who liked just entertaining. I just loved every movie. I'm very eclectic, and I guess I'm just. Like every genre, I mean, I was just put it where it is. All those early Spielberg films and action and horror, but I always went to I gravitated towards the horror that were more like I don't know if you remember an old film called The Changeling,
Yeah.
and kind of then we sort of got into the Insidious and The Conjuring, where that kind of came back. They called it elevated horror. Psychological horror. I, of course, was a little kid and grew up with, and, I love all the famous horrors of the 80s and 90s with Scream and going back to the Freddy Kruegers and etc. But honestly, I always went to those, I guess you'd call them those character horror movies, where it's a drama if you took out the horror. And
Right.
You kind of just got really into this family or these relationships with these people, but oh my God, these horrible things are happening. And how would they deal with it on a normal basis, as opposed to necessarily, people jumping in and out of dreams and having chainsaws. I guess I liked more of what scared me was more the realistic world.
The realistic, the psychological aspect of it. And that's what's so great about your new film, Disquiet. And I gotta ask you, what is it about a location set in horror that everybody's been to, that everybody is very aware of, that makes it scary, such as a hospital? I mean, besides the obvious, like a hospital is a scary place for obvious reasons.
I wrote this script right before the pandemic. And then it was going to go right before it. And then the pandemic threw a whole new element onto this story of being trapped in a hospital, which so many people actually were, sadly and scarily. But it was like, it's, I don't know if you've ever, well, I'm sure you have. Everyone's, if you've wandered around a hospital ever at night, they're really spooky places. I don't care if it's completely full, and forget the horror movie aspect. There's the sounds and the breathing machines, and it's really quiet, but there's these hums, and they're usually in older buildings, and they have the creaks, and it's definitely a spooky place, let alone the fact that you're dealing with life and death and, actual real life horror. So you just a very slight push and you're there without trying.
Right. And so you're talking about, even before the pandemic, and it takes place in a hospital that you actually can't escape. What was there anything you drew upon inspiration wise of being trapped in a familiar location that just kind of oozed into this Disquiet film?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple of things. First of, I was very inspired, and by inspired, I mean terrified by, I still remember, maybe it was the age I saw it or what the deal was, but I don't know if you remember Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, yes.
Those images stuck in my head for a very long time. They're still there.
Right.
And had that kind of feel where you're kind of in that state of between sleep and being awake. And did I see something there? Is that a shadow there? Is that something there? Wait, why is that wait, the face is suddenly weird, but no, it's not. I'm looking at you, but I just woke up, so your kind of eyes are focusing. And then the general thing of many hospitals now, and especially during the pandemic, I unfortunately had some relatives stuck there, and they're not easy getting in and out of. They really aren't. Even if you know exactly where you're going, you've got to go down there and here, and every hallway looks the same, and just finding, I guess you'd call it the lobby or the exit, is
right,
not easy in the daylight. So throw in a little bit of our supernatural movie going on here, and it gets quite spooky.
And I'm glad you brought up that point just now about being awake and being asleep, somewhere in between, kind of like that purgatory, that limbo. And it's like that sleep paralysis that we've seen documentaries on in real things. And as somebody who's dealt with, something like that, watching Sam, the character here, it's almost like, oh my goodness, there's something going on. Was something like sleep paralysis going through your mind when, writing and making?
There is. For me, it's more that dream, where you're almost awake mode. And for me, because I get a lot of ideas in that, like right after waking up, and you're still kind of lying there, but you're not asleep, but you are, because you're not fully conscious. And yes, that area was there. And I was also there's a famous painting, it's called The Nightmare. I don't know if you know of it.
I do absolutely know The Nightmare. Yes, I have.
So that painting, or if you want to fill in your audience or viewers, that painting is of it's a mood, it's an atmosphere, it's just it really sums up its name. And there's a woman, she's lying on a bed, she's looks like she's passed out, unconscious, asleep, and there's like this little demon creature like sitting on her chest, but he's looking out at us, the viewer, And it's
Right.
just I mean, that mood alone kind of sums up what we were going for with the movie.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I think you got that element out throughout the film, because there are those moments where, you know, in its very quick pace, that even in its fast pacing, you manage to somehow still get those jump scares, still manage to take it to a next level of terror with almost each scene, whether it be like, okay, we're with somebody who doesn't seem to know where he's at, he's figuring it out, and then all of a sudden something comes out and tries to get him. Was that mode of filmmaking something you were going for? Because it works very well, and I imagine going through your list of films, like you're an expert at it right now.
I don't know if you ever become an expert. You learn on each movie. In Malicious, which was a previous horror film I did right before the world ended, pandemic style.
Right.
That one actually was more of a slow build, and I was intrigued by the concept of, could I do one that started out like we're in it, we're moving. It's as you just mentioned, more of a fast-paced move, but yet still evoke the atmosphere and the mood, etc. And you never get the time or the budget on these projects you'd like. So could we still capture all of that feeling, atmosphere, and keep the pace going while, as you said, delivering kind of a creepy vibe and scary vibe, and still get some jumps in there and still get the moment. So I'm glad they worked for you.
No, they did, because you're watching it, and throughout the movie, as watching as many horror movies as I'm sure you and I have over the years, you still manage to okay, that was that.
Yes.
that got me. That's good.
And sometimes the ones that get you surprise you. It's that mood. You're kind of like, you're just kind of creeped out. Like I always go back, like I said, I go back to Jacob's Ladder, was kind of just the original of those images. I mean, how many years ago is that? I mean,
the early 90s, right?
Right. And they still, again, like I said, maybe it was the age I saw it at, whatever the deal was, but they're burned in there.
No, it's so great. And you know what? After watching some of your films in Disquiet, it seems like you are, as the term goes, an actor's director. You've worked with Delroy Lindo, you've worked with Steven Seagal, you worked with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Lachlan Monroe. Is there anything you learn from your actors to get their performances? Because when Stanley Kubrick's making his movies, he wanted to break down his actors, and by doing multiple takes. But is there anything you learn from your actors that you want to get that perfect performance in over the years?
Yes. One is like any other human or person or profession, everyone's an individual and comes at it from a different place. For example, I had the honor of doing one with Gary Oldman, and he has his very, very specific way of working. He is the character, and he's there, and he wants every word correct. The script is stone. I mean, that's where it is, and it's wonderful as a writer hearing that. Then there are other actors who they inhabit the character and want to just feel and riff with it, and kind of they understand the character and the movie, and therefore the exact dialogue is not as important, and they're going with the feel. And the I guess, I don't know if the trick is, but the trick is ascertaining what makes the actor's performance the best and what they're into the most, and leaning into that hard, bear hugging it, and going with that method and bringing others. Like Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, and his films, he brought an intensity and a vulnerability, and that was inherent in him. And though some lines were originally written that I guess would have been a little more quippy, which is kind of my previous style, he brings an energy to it, and you're like, oh, and me and Jonathan will have this conversation. And, oh, you know what? Let's go with where you're going. You know what? As opposed to pushing against where his instinct was going, let's bear hug that and let's go down that road, because that's really fascinating to watch.
No, that was. And Sam, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers played Sam with such a genuine likeness that I really liked him almost immediately.
Oh, great. And that's good, because he has some unlikable traits.
No, he does, but correct. But it's genuine. And so now that you mentioned Gary Oldman, I've got to add him being method and him doing Set in Stone. Are Steven Seagal and Gary Oldman on the opposite ends of that spectrum, yes, or are they more closely together than one might think?
Nope, they are the exact opposite. And it's interesting to have, as you said, worked with both such both
polar opposites
performers. Yes. Steven Seagal is Steven Seagal, and
no matter what character he's bringing himself,
he's Steven Seagal. That's where he goes. I mean, will he adjust it slightly? Sure, but that said, that was definitely a different kind of that's a different experience.
Is that something you adjust to as a filmmaker, or is that something you just go with?
Well, I guess you have to do both, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yes, that was kind of earlier in my movie land. So you're like, okay, this is what we're doing. All right, let's strap in and make this happen. But yes, and but with Jonathan here, it was just I mean, like I said, he's just a director's dream.
And he's brilliant.
He'll bring so much for it. Like he got immediately the Dante's Inferno layer going on in the whole movie. I mean, he brought it immediately, so much so he goes the Sam character, did you ever think? And I go, did I ever think calling him Dante? Well, that was the original draft, and then his name changed from Dante to Dan, and then Dan to Sam, because I thought it was the idea was that's a little sledgehammery. You don't need that to enjoy it, but that's going on there. I mean, the Sarah character was once even named Beatrice. I mean, I went the whole whole route there. And then I was like, you know what? You can enjoy this movie without knowing any of that, really get into it. But, under the surface, if you're picking up on that, that's great.
No, it's wonderful. No, I love the Dante stuff. Like, I love seeing that in movies, and with each filmmaker's creative vision taking it there, because it's always fascinating to me. Now I got to talk about Rich Walters, the composer of the movie, the music, because he's done a lot of great stuff. His music stuff goes from Elysium to Snowpiercer to Nobody, Chappie, remake of Child's Play, and now we're here with Disquiet, the score. I'm a big film score person. I love it. Yeah. So I noticed some of those notes, some of those melodic type of things that were going on. Did you have any input? Did you get to talk with Rich about what you want to talk to me about? No, he was very collaborative.
Like, he did. We had a very long conversation about it before. He watched the movie before anything. He watched it with a temp score that editor Bob Ferretti, great editor who I've worked with multiple times, and had kind of laid in there. But it was creating an atmosphere and a mood. But then Rich kind of like, do I have freedom to go even further with this? And I was like, yes. And we had to find, it was interesting. We talked about finding a middle ground between, it's not an action. You can't go an action score, but you got to go it's thrilling. And then other than that, how do you create this creepy atmospheric vibe that is happening and keep it moving and interesting, but yet just making you unsettled and uneasy? And I think Rich really did a great job on that. He just really nailed it. And, it brings it, because I think a lot to movies, and especially these horror, these thrillers, music adds a
big like character
Huge.
to the movie.
I mean, half the movie's sound. So-
That's true. That's true. And visuals.
There we go. The other half is visual. That's right. Picture and sound. That's it.
No, Disquiet. It's a wonderful, like surprisingly horrifying movie with like a lot underneath too. Like it makes you think. And when you were making this, was there like an out of body moment for you where you're like, oh, we got something amazing here as you're watching your actors?
There'd be moments that you're getting there. You're like, wow, there's some pretty cool, creepy stuff going on here. I remember one of the early days, one of the first or second days of just the character referred to as the Gaunt Man in the script, but Jonathan's character refers to him as the Coma Man. And there's just like a long shot down a hallway, and he's just sort of standing there, like kind of silhouette-y, like under the light, and just in a long looking down the hallway. I was like, and just looking in the monitor, I was like, that's a really, there's no way that's not just a creepy image. And what is it? It's a guy standing, down the hall, but you're like, it's just unsettling. And then you're like, oh wow, this might work. This might actually work.
You're like, I've got something here.
It's coming through. Yeah, it's always nice when you see some moments like that. And of course, honestly, any director will tell you this who's had a hand at writing the script or has written the script, that the moment you hear some actors at top of their game reading your lines, you become a little kid and you're just giddy and smiling ear to ear behind the monitor and hoping no one looks at you goofily, like you're a goofy guy there, because it's just like, oh, this is so cool.
That's always good because you love your craft, you love your art, and you're having fun doing it. That's always that exudes to me, the audience.
Oh yeah, no, you gotta love. I mean, look what we get to do. We get to make them. We get to make movies. I mean, God, how bad can that be? It's always great. The worst day is still, we're making a movie. This is great.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And you had a great cast.
Yes.
With, is it Rachel or Rochelle?
Rochelle Goulding, who actually I believe she's in Reginald the Vampire, which just came out. Or at least
yes.
Yes, she was great. And then Elise Levesque, who from Ready or Not, and of course Stargate.
And then Lachlan, who
Lachlan, yes,
from
in every movie ever made.
When I first saw him, Dead Man on Campus, and then now he's doing great things.
Well, what's funny is before, so I was watching, Peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Peacemaker before I flew up to Vancouver to shoot the film, and there's Lachlan. And then I get up there, and then Lachlan agreed to do it. And I was like, that's fantastic. I'm halfway through your show. And what's funny is right before, literally, I did two back to back, and the one right before it I did with Robert Patrick. So they were both in Peacemaker, and I was like, I had just done with one, and then Lachlan's in other. I was like, all right.
There you go. So I guess your next film's going to have John Cena, right?
That's right. You got to do that, right?
So now I got to ask you, it seems like talking with you, you're obviously a cinematic aficionado.
I have a lot of, one will say, a lot of trivia in my head, whether for better or worse.
For better or worse. Are there any particular scenes in movies that have always stuck with you that have helped shape your creative life?
Wow, any scene. I mean, there's probably so many. There's just wow.
Take a second to think on it. Take a second.
Wow, that is an incredible one. But it's more feelings and emotions. But I've been as a Hitchcock and a Spielberg fan. You could pick most of it. So this is gonna Here, I'm gonna get a little remote vague here for you a moment, because I've done nothing like this yet, but I just always remember if this is the absolute master at craft there. In the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's an 8 to 10 minute dialogue scene where it's just Harrison Ford, Indy, sitting there at a chalkboard trying to explain to the two government guys the plot of the movie. It's like an 8-minute or 9-minute exposition scene. Nothing happens but him there, and just the way the camera moves around, and he's drawing on chalk, trying to explain pretty much the Bible and the Ark and the whole movie that's gonna happen. And it's nonstop. The fact that is fascinating from beginning to end to get away with that, because we're always hammered with the thing of, you got a short, kind of get to the chase, cut down there. And the fact that he was able to pull that off, and just, I know that doesn't sound as flashy and cool as probably you're looking to hear, but that's what I'm looking to hear. That sequence is so amazing. And it's only dialogue, and it's only a guy and two folks at a table. And then the Marcus Brody character walks in the back. But there's nothing else. Nothing's going on. It's just a camera and these guys just talking, and it's their passion for what they're talking about. And it's literally the expository scene.
Correct. And so, like, you mentioned that, and that's Spielberg and Lucas, and it feels like Spielberg did that in the 70s with Jaws, with that 10-minute scene when they're all on the boat, and
that's
it's
right.
just
Another
them
one.
telling
Perfect
the story
example.
and talking, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie.
It's one of the best scenes ever. Yes, perfect example. Yes, you have a bunch of great actors. The script is working. The dialogue's working. You know where to put the camera to pretty much get out of their way and let them do their thing.
Okay. See, that's what I'm looking for. I love that. I love that you brought that up, because when you say Raiders of the Lost Ark, you're thinking
of course,
another scene. But that scene,
so many great sequences.
That's great.
But
wonderful. All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for talking with me today. The movie is Disquiet. What is next for Michael?
I am actually, I don't want to knock on wood or knock on something here. I actually have a pretty wild action fantasy time traveling film coming up later in the spring. I'm supposed to be shooting, so hopefully I'll be able to say more about that. But it's going to be a slight departure from what I'm used to, which is great. So which is awesome.
We got to get that 8-minute scene in your action movie with just everybody talking. And I'll be like, there's that scene.
If I can even pull off a 3-minute that's fascinating, that's fascinating, that'd be great. But no, that's wonderful. But
excellent. Well, thank you so much, Michael. Thanks for talking with me today. I hope to talk
Bryan.
with you very soon. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Of course.
No texting and driving.
Only when I'm texting you.
Hey, Sam. Hello! Anybody!
Who were those women? Where is everyone?
But we're gonna have to figure this out. You shouldn't be in there.
We are not helping him.
Hey, we need to stick together. All the landlines are dead, there's no cell phone signal, and none of us have found a door to get out of here. This will not end well unless we work together.
Sam? We need to go down. Find the exit.
Who the hell are they? Hello, 911?
I am getting out of here. No matter what it takes!